I showed it to everyone else and said nothing. Please, Alex, let's discuss. What took place the night before? It isn't what you believe. Give me a moment to explain, please. Sebastian snorted, as if there was a reason for what we had witnessed. I didn't respond and erased the communication. My attorney will be reaching out to her in due course. Reports began to arrive from our various social connections as the day went on. The consequences of their acts were already being felt by Genevieve, Serafina, and Vivian. Friends were pulling away from them. Gossip followed them around, and invitations were being cancelled. A fierce sense of righteousness filled me. It was no longer only about the betrayal, it had to do with keeping the world in order. They were discovering the hard way that there were consequences to their actions. I was back at my house by nightfall, sipping a glass of scotch in my study. Now, the house felt empty but cleaner in a way, like a festering wound had finally been pricked. My cell phone rang once more. It was my attorney, John. I've submitted the paperwork, Alexander. It's served to Vivian. She's asked to meet, but at this point I've suggested against it. Which way would you like to go? Taking a sip of my scotch, I thought. No talks, no meetings. John, she made her decision. We are now trying to make this as quick and easy as we can. That is for me, recognized. I will provide you with updates on any changes. I felt a burden release from my shoulders as I hung up. The choice was made. The wheels turned. Of course it would hurt. But I was confident that I had made the proper decision in my bonus. I got up and went to the window to see the lights of the city outside. A new chapter without Vivian, devoid of deception and treachery, was about to begin. It was time to start over and move on. I was prepared for it, too. I was also prepared. Hi everyone, please hit the like button if you enjoyed this story and would like to hear more absurd ones like it. And sign up for weekly updates on more amazing stories. Remember to enable notifications so you don't miss any updates. Please leave your comments if you have any wild tales to tell or concepts you'd want us to explore. I would adore hearing them. I appreciate you seeing women's clothes lying haphazardly on the ground. I knelt down and felt my fingers stroking the same scarf I'd given Vivian for Christmas, even though my hands were shaking. The silk felt like a reproach on my skin. Sebastian mumbled, Christ, his voice hardly audible above a whisper. Maximilian's breath caught as he held up a blouse I knew as Serafina's favorite. He had also discovered anything belonging to Genevieve. We looked at each other, the terror of what this meant weighing heavily on our minds. We were all afraid to talk about the ideas that were on our minds. The ramifications were too unsettling and unusual to even consider. My hands gripped Vivian's scarf tighter, a wave of emotions threatening to overtake me. Feelings of anger, betrayal, perplexity, and a persistent worry of what could be within the stable. My fist clenched the fabric, and I forced a steadying breath out of me. We must enter, I replied, my voice strange to my own ears. Sebastian nodded grimly and said, Whatever's happening, we need to know. His typical charm had been replaced with a steely resolve. Maximilian's calculating gaze was fixated on the stable door, his face a mask of frigid rage. We exchanged a final, menacing glance of resolve and stepped toward the door. We were preparing ourselves for whatever insanity lay within. With a mix of terror and resolve, my heart hammering, I charge into the stable. Right behind me, Sebastian and Maximilian's expressions reflect my own somber determination. We burst in, the big wooden door slamming against the wall, our breathing heavy for a second. Vivian, Serafina, and Genevieve are seen there, huddled together like a startled deer cow caught in headlights. Their faces are plastered with remorse, their eyes wide with shock. I glance around the place. There are no horses visible, only our ladies who appear unkempt and quite guilty. However, something is strange. No horses are involved, no bizarre situation as we had expected. Rather, a figure steps out of the darkness, and my heart stops. Goddamn horse trainer Dante. Everything fits into place right then and there. The late hours, the secrecy, the concern with the stable. It was always about him, never the horses. So this was the purpose of all the biking, right? My voice dripping with poison, I spit out. Vivian opens her lips to say something, but I stop her with a gaze that could make hell freeze over. Leave me alone, I've seen enough. Maximilian and Sebastian pick up on it quickly. Sebastian turns to face Serafina, his face twisted with anger. He yells, You filthy liar. With a look of betrayal and disgust on his face, Maximilian simply looks at Genevieve. I won't let Dante, that slimy bastard, get away with it. I turn to face him, my veins throbbing with rage. I give a deep, menacing growl, Get the hell out of here, you're done. I do mean finished. I take out my phone and quickly take a couple pictures of the site. The sound makes Vivian wince, but I don't give a damn. I mutter, This is all I need. More than anybody else, I think. I give up and turn around without saying anything more. Every step I take feels like another nail in the coffin of my marriage as they reverberate in the shocked quiet. Maximilian and Sebastian trail behind, their own rage permeating the air. I move forward and don't turn around. I'm over Vivienne, over the lies, and over the treachery. I inhale deeply and let the fury to sweep over me as we step outside into the crisp night air. Without a doubt, it's not over. I'll let them stew in their fear and shame for the time being, though. The real repercussion starts tomorrow. The following morning, I got up early, my mind already racing with all the things I had to do. It seemed like an empty bedroom without Vivienne in it. I would not have to deal with her this morning. That's good. I took up my phone and called my attorney. It's Alexander, John. I need the divorce process to begin right away. And by that I mean right now. The other end of the call hesitated for a moment. Naturally, Alexander, I'm assuming you want this to be handled as discreetly as possible. While discretion is important, quickness is crucial. I need this finished as soon as possible, and neatly. John, see to it that she receives exactly what she contributed to this marriage, not a single penny more. Recognized. In an hour, I'll have the papers completed. Do you have any proof to back up your claims? I remembered the pictures I'd taken at the stable. Indeed, I do. I will forward them soon. I hung up the phone and took my time going through our joint accounts at my workstation. I took away Vivienne's access to our joint account with a few clicks. It felt essential, yet cold and deliberate. There was a buzz on my phone. Sebastian was the one. I just filed, Alex. Seraphine is no longer available. How are things going for you? I answered, amazed at how steady my voice sounded. I'm fine. I just hung up with my attorney. Vivienne won't recognize the blow to her. Excellent, Max is following suit. If you would like to join us, we are having lunch later. After agreeing, I hung up. I went back to my computer and started the process of removing Vivienne from my life. Pictures erased, social media accounts shut down, possessions packaged and prepared for shipping. I had confirmation at midday that Dante had been let go from the stable. Word of his transgression spread like wildfire across our social circles, leaving his reputation in ruins. Goodbye. I had lunch with Sebastian and Maximilian at our regular private club. Though gloomy, the ambience had a dreadful tenacity about it. I raised my glass to fresh beginnings and said, "Gentlemen." Jaw clenched, Max nodded and celebrated justice done. Sebastian appeared pallid but unwavering. It never occurred to me that this would happen. However, here we are. For the next hour, we compared notes on lawyers and tactics and talked about our objectives. Clearly, none of us were going to back down. Our wives would now have to live with the repercussions of the decisions they had made. Just as we were wrapping up, Vivienne sent me a text on my phone. That has crossed my mind, but it doesn't stack up. The need to be there all the time and the secrecy. Something else is at play here. Maximilian leaned in and spoke softly. How about if? What if it's something instead of someone? I scowled. By what do you mean? After he paused, he continued. Equines. They talk about the horses all the time. How about if? What happens if something improper occurs? I felt as though someone had punched me in the stomach. The parts were beginning to come together in a way that made my skin crawl, yet all I wanted to do was laugh it off and tell Maximilian he was being foolish. That is crazy. Sebastian stammered, but his eyes were full with doubt. In an attempt to center myself, I inhaled deeply. Even as I detest to admit it, nothing can be ruled out. What's going on at that stable needs to be known to us. I concur. We must monitor this more closely. Observe them if necessary. Sebastian questioned, scarcely raising his voice above a whisper, and if our suspicions are confirmed, I stole myself, meeting their eyes. Then we take any necessary action to stop this craziness. It is Friday at 11:42 p.m. We stop a decent distance away from the stable, the tires crunching softly on the gravel road till we kill the headlights, the moon barely peeking through the clouds. It's enough dark for no one to notice us coming. Like we've discussed, we silently exit our cars without even attempting to say a word. The silent night is filled with our heavier than normal breathing. I look at Sebastian. And then Maximilian, tensing my jaw more and more with every stride. The pit in my gut becomes colder the closer we get, like something undesired and festering. How in the hell are we supposed to locate anything? With one hand buried deep in his pocket, and the other clutching his phone like it's a lifeline, Maximilian mutters under his breath, his face barely visible in the low light. His nerves are clearly showing. I say in a quiet, harsh voice, "If we keep talking, we're not going to find shit after that." He quickly stops talking. We infiltrate nearer. The stable stood there like a hideous secret, just waiting to be discovered. We are the first to hear the faint sounds. Laughing, breezy and light. It's obvious. The chuckle of Vivienne, mixed with the others. She's content. They are content. I'm not sure if that makes it better or worse, but my gut tightens. With a jerk of his chin toward the side of the stable, Sebastian nudges me. That window there. That's the area we search. We run over. Although I didn't particularly enjoy the sound of the earth crunching under our shoes, we were able to move to the side without causing any trouble. The window, an old wooden object that ought to have been replaced years ago, is cracked. But right now it's flawless. I can already hear more. The women, the occasional snort, the sound of the restless shifting horses. I take a fast breath and look through. Yes, they are inside. Vivienne, Serafina, Genevieve, every single one of them. They appear carefree as their riding clothing hang loose, half pulled off. Skins flushed, a buzz that I cannot quite put my finger on, the most peculiar aspect? They're ecstatic. Their energies were nearly crazy. Deft movements and looks that are so different from the ones we are familiar with. I've never seen Vivienne touch a horse this close to her before, gradual, slow, as if she's playing with it. My gut is twisted once more over this. She runs her fingers down its neck and then leans in to speak in the horse's ear. Is she saying fuck? Sebastian's whispering voice is gruff, and it's obvious from one look that he's not liking the scenery either. As I see my wife's lips graze the horse's ear so closely, I can't help but wonder if she's gone insane because nothing about this scene makes sense anymore. Peering over my shoulder, Maximilian murmurs, "They're not acting normal. Does this feel off to me? Or is it just me? More accurate than inaccurate?" I start to respond, but the women start to get up. Vivienne draws the other person's attention and motions for them to follow her further into the stable while removing her hand from the horse. The atmosphere shifts. Even if it's quieter now, the odd intensity is still present. They latch onto a horse, their arms encircling its body in a manner that makes me uncomfortable. Too close, too incorrect. After then, they vanish, disappearing from our line of sight as they lead the animal to its next destination, leaving us to stand there and stare after them in complete confusion about what to do next. With every step I took approaching the stable entrance, my heart raced. Maximilian and Sebastian stood to either side of me, their expressions reflecting the same combination of resolve and fear that was pulsing through my veins. My foot snagged on something soft as we got closer to the entrance. I cast a downward glance, and my heart felt icy. There was a pile of, to me very often. She acts aloof, as though she isn't actually there when she isn't at the stable. Maximilian sipped his scotch slowly. Genevieve as well. She smells like hay and horses when she gets home. She recoils when I try to touch her. Vivienne is the same, I murmured, straining my jaw. This fixation, it's not normal, with the unspoken thought still hanging in the air. We exchanged glances. She seems like a different person. Sebastian was the first to voice it. Do you believe there might be another person at the stable? I gave a headshake. Love with horses. It began rather casually. She casually added a few weeks back that Serafina had asked her to come see a stable. At the moment, I didn't give it any thought. Vivienne and her pals are constantly searching for the newest, greatest thing. I assumed it was simply another passing fad. However, she returned home that night with a light-hearted excitement in her eyes that I hadn't seen in years. She would not stop gushing about the horses, their powerful physique, their graceful, powerful movements. To be honest, it was nice to see her truly enthusiastic about something. Alexander, you ought to have seen them, she gushed over supper. They are truly amazing creatures. I grinned, enjoying her zeal. I'm happy you had a good time, sweetie. I had no idea that this was only the start. For the next several days, horses were the only thing on our minds. Vivienne devoured horse periodicals and studied endless videos regarding riding and horse maintenance. She even began drawing horses in a notepad, something I hadn't saw her perform since her little time as a creative student. One morning during breakfast, she stated, "I'm thinking of taking riding lessons. How do you feel?" I answered, still finding her newfound passion rather endearing. "Go for it, if it makes you happy." However, as the days stretched into weeks, I started to get increasingly uneasy. Vivienne was going to the stable more and more. She would hurry out the door every evening, hardly giving me a sidelong glance. Visiting the horses once more? Attempting to keep my tone neutral, I would inquire. "Yes, sweetheart, don't put it off." And then she would be gone, leaving me alone in our excessively large home. I was troubled not only by how often she visited, it was the way she'd come home, all perky and flushed, with a leather and hay scent, and the way she'd beeline for her phone, laughing at texts from Genevieve and Serafina detailing their exploits in the stable. I couldn't get rid of the impression that this unexpected passion with horses was deeper than it first appeared. However, each time I attempted to bring up the topic, Vivienne would divert the conversation by telling me another tale about her beloved mare or the advancements she was making in her riding classes. What the heck is going on at that stable? I think as I sip my glass of scotch in my study, and hear Vivian's car driving out of the driveway one more time. I was walking around our large penthouse's living room on a cool Thursday evening in late October, at 7 o'clock. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights twinkled, but I was not at all appreciating the sight. For the 1,000th time, I looked at my watch and saw that Vivian was running late. Once more. I heard the sound of heels clicking on the marble floor and the ding of the elevator as if on cue. With excitement shining in her eyes and cheeks flushed, Vivian walked confidently in. I tried to seem impartial when I said, "You're home late." She threw off her coat with hardly a glance at me. "You know how it is, I see. When I'm at the stable, time just rushes by." She seemed to radiate an enthusiasm I hadn't seen in years as I watched her make her way to the kitchen. I should have felt thrilled about it, but instead I felt a knot in my gut grow. "We should talk." "Vivian," I replied, trailing after her. She'd already started to pour herself a glass of vino. "Regarding what, my dear?" "Regarding this horse fixation. You've been talking about it and doing it nonstop for weeks now." With a small narrowing of her emerald eyes, Vivian turned to face me. "Alexander, it's not an obsession. It's a passion of mine that I really enjoy." Frustrated, I ran a hand through my hair. "A pastime that consumes your evenings? Is that the only thing on your mind?" Her stance stiffened when she took a sip of her wine. "I didn't know that having interests outside of this apartment required your consent." Saying that's not what I meant and you know it, my voice grew abrasive. "These days we seldom ever spend time together. You always leave quickly and arrive home late." "Vivian, what's actually going on at that stable?" Something flickered in her eyes for a brief second. Fear and guilt. However, it vanished so swiftly that I was unsure. "Nothing is going on, Alexander," she said, her tone ice cold. "I'm learning to ride, spending time with beautiful animals. Is it so hard to believe I might find joy in something that doesn't revolve around you or your world?" Her words hurt. "Still," I persisted. "That is not the point. You've evolved. You seem far away. These days you hardly ever touch me. You hardly even glance at me. Tell me if something is wrong, please." Vivian clinked her glass sharply and put it down. "Your paranoia is the only thing that is incorrect. I'm going to shower. Now." I smelled something different as she walked by me. It was not the perfume she usually wore. It had a hay and leather scent. As I watched her go away down the corridor, I couldn't help but feel a rising suspicion. I was determined to figure out why something wasn't right. At the charity dinner, I made the decision to talk to Sebastian in the hopes of learning more about this strange circumstance. Moving across the packed ballroom, I saw him standing behind the bar, looking as uneasy as I was. "How are you doing, Sebastian?" I forced a grin as I greeted him. Startled, he turned around. "I guess I'm okay, Alexander." "What say you?" I spoke more softly. In actuality, I had a question for you. "Have you recently observed anything strange regarding Serafina?" Sebastian's expression sank, and he leaned in after taking an anxious look around. "You as well?" I believed I was losing my mind. "Serafina has been behaving rather oddly. She talks about horses endlessly at that blasted stable. She seems to have changed completely." My stomach fell out. In the same manner, Vivian is always running to the stable, returning home late, and being aloof," Sebastian said, exactly before lowering his voice once more. "I'm not sure how to interpret it. Horses used to make Serafina angry. She is now completely focused on it." A chilly sweat started to appear on my skin. This exceeded my expectations. "Have you attempted to discuss it with her?" I inquired. Sebastian gave a headshake. "She dismisses me, saying I'm simply being overly suspicious, but I know something is up." With a quick thank you to Sebastian, I crossed the room, my thoughts racing. I required additional details. At that moment, I noticed Maximilian by the windows, appearing unusually anxious. Saying that, I walked over to Maximilian. "Is everything okay?" He turned to face me, none of his normal charisma. "Really speaking, Alexander, no, it's me, Genevieve, recently different." My heart fell. "Supposedly, residing at the stable all the time?" Maximilian's gaze grew wide. "How were you aware of this?" I said in a low voice that Vivian and Serafina are the same person, devoted to horses, constantly present at the stable, and aloof. Maximilian went pale. "Alexander, what the devil is going on?" I shook my head, my sense of dread mounting. "Something's off, but I'm not sure what it is. Our spouses are concealing something, and everything is linked to that stable." We looked at one another anxiously, the realization weighing on us. All of our women were being impacted by whatever was going on at that stable, and I was determined to find out. I stood by the window and painted the sky pink and orange as the sun sank below the horizon. Even at 7:30 p.m., Vivian was still not home. With a sigh, I combed through my hair. Over the past 2 weeks, this had come to be our new normal. I was startled out of my reverie by the sound of the front door opening. I looked over and saw Vivian walk in, her eyes sparkling with anticipation and her cheeks glowing. Hello, I said, trying not to seem too serious. What kind of day did you have? Vivienne said, oh, the usual, and her eyes strayed from me. Her pricey white shirt had a speck of muck on the hem, which caught my attention. With a gesture toward the stain, I said. She saw a flash of something when she looked down. Was it shame? Her face crossed. I think I may have knocked into something at the stable. Not a huge concern. She was walking toward our bedroom, I assumed, to change. Her hair was still wet from her little shower when she came out a few minutes later. However, I smelled something familiar as she passed me. Hi there. She smelled like the stables even after taking a shower. I started, feeling a knot in my stomach form. Vivienne. Can we discuss this horse thing, please? With a cautious expression, she turned to face me. How about it? It's simply that you've been to the stables a lot lately. These days I seldom ever see you. Is everything in order? Vivienne smiled, but it wasn't the warm smile I was used to. Her eyes brightened. It seemed odd in some way, and I felt unhappy about it. Oh, Alexander, she said, her voice seeming dreamy. You could not comprehend. The horses are incredible animals, I feel like I have a closer connection to them. They seem to have a deeper understanding of me than most others do. Her words sent a shiver down my spine. Her description of the horses struck me as strangely personal, almost romantic. My skin crawled, attempting to suppress the alarm from my voice. Vivienne's eyes grew apathetic. They are so liberated and strong. I feel like I can be who I really am while we're together. It is difficult to describe. I can't seem to put it into words. I'm happy that you found something you're passionate about, Vivienne, but don't you think this is going too far? With abrupt acuity, her gaze shifted towards me. Too much? Alexander, you're not understanding. This is everything, not just a pastime. She spoke with a level of intensity that surprised me. I started to reply, but before I could do so, she had moved on, leaving me standing there feeling even more perplexed and worried. I was determined to find out what was going on behind her equestrian passion, because as I saw her vanish into her study, I couldn't get rid of the impression that there was more to it than that. I invited Sebastian and Maximilian to my private study by phone. I needed to share notes with the others since I was getting tired of this scenario with our wives. A tense hush enveloped us as we took our seats in the leather couches and began sipping our beverages. I gave a throat clearing. I think we all understand why we are here, gentlemen. Sebastian nodded, a worried look on his usually happy face. Things get worse. Serafina no longer talks. Is this the subject matter of all the writing? Then? My voice dripping with poison, I spit out. Vivienne opens her lips to say something, but I stop her with a gaze that could make hell freeze over. Leave me alone, I've seen enough. This was repulsive. I never imagined that Vivienne would become interested in anything other than social media or designer labels. And yet here we are with my wife, of all things, unexpectedly falling in.